Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. I appreciate the support. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. This is a huge story. And if indeed the Daily Mail and other articles are correct, there will be criminal charges imminent for one or two or a number of USAID officials. Trump considers criminal charges. This is the Daily Mail. To my super chat, Paul, thank you so very much for your support. Paul Bartlett, thank you. Let's get started. Exclusive. Trump considers criminal charges for USAID staff after DOJ uncovered wild abuse. You're going to hear the potential corruption in a second from congressional testimony and from other reports. But here, let's read this. Federal workers at USAID could find themselves behind bars for fraud after DOJ uncovered a massive spending scandal at the program. DailyMail.com has learned. Pete Morocco, Deputy Administrator Designate at USAID, provided the House Foreign Affairs Committee with a briefing on Capitol Hill Wednesday while discussing the review of foreign aid implemented by President Donald Trump. Morocco told the committee he is considering sending criminal recommendations to the Justice Department regarding actions within USAID being exposed by Elon Musk's DOJ. And there you have it. So this is huge, ladies and gentlemen. This is absolutely huge. Self-noted that Morocco and USAID would not share their plans for criminal recommendations unless they had rock-solid paper trail. So let's listen to this. Hit subscribe. This is huge. And to my super chat, thank you. Paul Bartlett, thank you so very, very much. Let's get started. This is, you have criminal charges imminent, and then you will have Democrats saying, oh, no, everything's fine. And that's why they lost the popular vote. They don't have functioning primaries, and they don't have a functioning their foreign policy is essentially graft and bribery when you look at what's taking place at USAID. But hit subscribe. Let's get started.
Democrats having a conniption fit over the purge at the federal government might not want to fret too loudly over USAID. If you thought the millions agency spent on DEI was the worst of it, you're in for a shock.
Our next guest issued a report years ago warning that money was being wasted in the reconstruction of Afghanistan.
We actually did a report for a number of congressmen, including Congressman Welch, who asked us to look at how much was wasted, stolen, and whatever. And I think we reported back in July of 2018, just looking at what we looked at, and that was about 1/3 of the money that we looked at, that our agency did, was wasted, stolen, or didn't accomplish anything.
In 2023, he told Congress that taxpayer money may even have been going into the pockets of the Taliban.
Joining us now is former Inspector General for Afghanistan's Reconstruction, John Sopko. John, thank you very much for being here. Are you still unable to tell us whether some of our millions of dollars, hard-earned by taxpayers, went into the pockets of the Taliban?
Oh, we know a sizable amount went into the pockets of the Taliban. Now, just so you know, I'm no longer with the government, but the final reports we issued and I signed off on before my departure, indicated that. So we know, and we know it's going to continue because, unfortunately, we have nobody on the ground, and the money is going through the UN, the World Food Organization, and other international organizations.
That's why Democrats love these organizations. It's a Byzantine nightmare. What takes place is Congress does not appropriate the money to send to that organization being discussed right now. No, Democrats do not appropriate bills or funding for $20 million to fund Sesame Street in the Middle East. What they do is they give the money to USAID. There are non-governmental organizations that are then, in many cases, funneling money through legal methods. That's the problem. Through legal and above, well, quote unquote, above board methods to the Democratic Party or to Democrats for fundraising. That's a problem. It's called legal graft. It's called honest graft. That's what Tammany Hall used to call it in the late 1800s, honest graft.
And we don't really have good oversight. Now, let me just say, the money, there has been a pause on all financial assistance. I don't know all the details of that. I don't know if it includes money going to UN and other international organizations. But we just issued a quarterly report for January, which says that our major concern is dealing with these international organizations because of a lack of oversight.
Because we were talking about, John, USAID, but and the conversation surrounds some of what Elon Musk and his DOJ team are trying to do to root out waste, grotesque waste in spending, and particularly with spending overseas and reading so much about it. Is a lot of the waste and fraud and abuse happening because the people who are actually spending the money, it's really just focused on how much money you get out the door? There was a quote I read, if you don't ask about results, you don't fail and your budget doesn't get cut.
That's absolutely correct. And the problem in Afghanistan, and again, that's what I spent the last 12 years looking at, but it's a problem across the board. I mean, I was looking at USAID when I first came to Washington and working for Sam Nunn back in 1982, and it was a broken agency back then, and it's continued to be a broken agency. So it's just a problem. And the problem isn't just a bunch of individuals, because there's a lot of good people working on the ground for USAID, either contractors or employees. The worker bees, they're doing a good job. And they actually helped us in our oversight work, because they were out in Afghanistan and they were saying, you can't believe what we're doing. And we used that for a lot of our reports. But none of that got up to Washington. That's where you heard all the happy talk. We're winning the war. We're helping the kids. We're building schools. We're doing all this. And it turned out they built schools, but they never looked if there were any teachers. They built hospitals, but they never looked if there was any water or drugs or even patients. And that was the problem of U.S.
So $549 million for cargo planes that flew for a short time. Okay. $28 million on an inappropriate camouflage pattern. $28 million for an inappropriate camouflage pattern. Okay. $85 million on a never-opened hotel? And this is what Democrats are upset about? A total of $19 billion in general waste, fraud, and abuse, and you wonder why we have 30-plus trillion in debt? And over $1 trillion in deficit, budget deficit? And so this is what Democrats are desperately trying to save.
USAID, it was all happy talk. It was delusion. And you hit it on the head. The whole objective was spend the money. Now, it wasn't just USAID. DOD did the same thing. State Department did the same thing. The test wasn't what the outcome was. The test was, did you spend your appropriated funds? And if you didn't, you lost money. If you didn't, you weren't promoted. And that's the whole delusion we had between the reality on the ground and what you, the American people, were being told by the aid administrators, the ambassadors, the generals, and everybody for the last 20 years.
So this is very interesting. Also, the gentleman you wrote that you're going to watch wrote a book I actually bought it on Amazon. You could buy it. I think it's called Woketopolis. I'm about to read it, and this is the gentleman's book. I think it's worth a read, especially when he talks about how the non-governmental organizations pocket all the money, and then through legal and potentially corrupt means funnel the money to Democrats. By the way, to my super chat, thank you, Paul Bartlett. Thank you so much. Let's continue.
Tyler O'Neill for his opening statement.
Chairwoman Green, members of the subcommittee, the last few weeks have featured revelation after revelation of how our tax dollars have been spent propping up radical left-wing causes across the world. Yet what struck me about the abuse of foreign aid has been the connections with leftist activists here at home. As a senior editor at the Daily Signal, I researched the left's dark money network, which propped up the influence campaign I expose in my book, The Woketopus.
So you can buy that book, The Woketopus, on Amazon. I did. I haven't started reading it yet, but I'm very interested in reading it and seeing potentially how these non-governmental organizations, potentially political action committees, find ways to siphon the money. I mean, this is exactly what Democrats and Republicans, but Democrats especially, are very good at: taking taxpayer dollars, saying that Congress, and this is how the fact-checking articles lie by omission or overtly, that the Congress appropriated the money. Nope. Congress did not appropriate the money for the billions in waste. Congress appropriated money to USAID. Then they unilaterally decided to spend $20 million on Sesame Street in the Middle East. Nobody would have voted for that. So, wrong. Congress did not appropriate the money. And secondly, they say, oh, the USAID is helping people, the families. Okay, that's true. But Democrats shouldn't have siphoned the money through legal and corrupt means and bundled all of that funding to include actual humanitarian causes and the non-governmental organizations that are said to have funneled money into the Democratic Party. They don't even have functioning primaries, okay? These people are like the moral. There used to be a Saturday Night Live skit when SNL was really funny decades back. And it was, who was it? I think it was Al Franken, which is funny. He would look in the mirror and he would say, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and people love me. And that is what morally superior liberal Democrats oftentimes do. They look in the mirror and say, I'm on the side of truth and justice. And they give, their morality is dependent upon their trust in the state. It's really tribalism. It's not about morality. That's why they don't go to Thanksgiving, because they just want to punish people who vote differently. And ignorance is bliss. So they don't, number one, they don't know this is taking place because we didn't. Elon Musk found this out. Number two, they don't care. It's tribalism. They just want their side to win. So they claim to be morally superior, but at the end of the day, when they find out they don't even have functioning primaries, it's just always Trump is worse. And yeah, USAID is bad, but Trump is worse. So, and they benefit from this politically. But let's continue.
I found that leftist elites prop up NGOs that staffed and advised the Biden administration, pushing unpopular policies on the American people through the bureaucracy. In my remarks, I will present 3 examples of how the left's dark money network intersects with just one agency focused on foreign aid, the U.S. Agency for International Development. The views I will express in this testimony are my own. The left's dark money network features George Soros and his Open Society Foundations, the Tides Foundation, and the network of nonprofits established by Arabella Advisors.
Hey, want to know how?
These groups which you can see on this chart, funnel cash to DEI, transgender, and climate alarmist causes, divisive issues that the Biden administration prioritized.
Again, none of this money was appropriated by Congress. That is a lie that you're being told, or that Americans are being told by media. It's a lie by omission. They say, it's Congress appropriated the money. No, Congress appropriated the money to a USAID. And then USAID chose unilaterally to invest in all of these left-leaning ideologies, projects, operas, research, experiments linked to left-leaning ideologies. Okay, when they were talking about mice, they're like, haha, Trump. It's just like it's always the same. No, we heard this since 2016. From 2016 to today, no, the Democrats aren't cheating Bernie Sanders. Oh, what's this? The DNC emails forced Debbie Wasserman Schultz to resign. Oh, okay. No, Clinton didn't have classified data. Oh, okay, we find out, of course. You know, all of this, like, and then they're like, no, there wasn't, a certain type of mice. And it's like, oh, that's right. These mice were actually, the experiments were exactly that. Then they're like, experiments were looking at specific, worthwhile topics. And it's like, I'm not going to get into it, but they were topics linked directly to what Trump was talking about. Okay, own it. Own it. Just say it's a good thing. I read one, there was one publication that was actually honest that said, yeah, it's totally a good thing, and Trump was, could have been right to say that, no problem. Own it if you're on the left. So many times I've had debates, and I don't want to have debates with friends. I don't want to. It's just never, and it's nonsense. Whenever I explain to them, hey, this is taking place, if they're a liberal Democrat, they don't believe it. Then they look at an article, they say, look, it says, no, that's not true. Then I'm like, well, read the bottom paragraph, or like the paragraph before the bottom, where there's like 2 lines admitting what Trump said was pretty much accurate. He just phrased it in a way that, offends the liberal sensibilities. And the White House came out, by the way, regarding the experiment thing yesterday and issued a rebuttal. Even CNN had to issue some type of retraction. But anyway, let's continue. Bottom line is, nobody voted for this. No American knows anything that's going on. There's not, 99% of Americans have no clue what USAID is doing. The propaganda is, they're helping people around the world. It's like, okay, maybe that could be the case in some instances. And then you have these like pet projects of the far left that are being funneled billions of dollars. No thanks. Americans just elected Trump with the popular vote. He won every battleground state. You think the average person who catapulted Trump, thank God, to the presidency wants any of these USAID left-leaning projects? I don't think so.
Over addressing the concrete needs of the American people. The left's dark money network has deep ties to USAID, which has rightly received renewed scrutiny under DOJ and after Elon Musk shined a light on it. While the Open Society Foundations has stated that it does not receive funds from USAID or direct USAID's spending, the Soros-founded nonprofit has a long history with USAID. In 2001, the Soros Foundation's network, which became Open Society, listed USAID among its donor partners. Open Society and USAID have jointly funded the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, a news outlet that attacked conservatives for, you guessed it, criticizing Soros. Open Society and USAID also jointly fund the East-West Management Institute. Among other things, the institute launched court changes in Albania that critics allege.
By the way, that gentleman and myself, both the same religion. I don't represent everyone in my faith or ethnicity, neither does he. The really stupid, overtly, nonsensical rebuttals. If you criticize this one billionaire, then you're criticizing everyone of that person's ethnicity. It's like, no, you're not. That's a very, very stupid rebuttal. But let's continue.
Resulted in the prosecution of Albanian opposition leader Sali Berisha, silencing the opponent of the country's socialist prime minister. Open Society has hired at least 5 former USAID staff, including at least one high-level official who worked at USAID, and USAID reveal how woke elites have captured the enterprise of foreign aid. Thank you.
Thank you. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes of questions, and I will inform this committee.
By the way, I want to say something about Marjorie Taylor Greene for anyone who happens to see this, who happens to be a morally superior liberal Democrat. Okay, Democrats claim that Trump is a despot. Marjorie Taylor Greene is the person who didn't want to shut down the U.S. economy. Okay, that used to be a liberal vantage point years back. Now Democrats simply say whatever the state wants, we'll do, as long as we run or we influence the state politically. So Marjorie Taylor Greene is the one that says, hey, you shouldn't be censoring people's viewpoints or their speech. Democrats say, yes, you should, if it offends people. Marjorie Taylor Greene is the person saying you shouldn't shut down economic activity. So, people don't go to school, university, schools, work. They can't pay their rent. And then, of course, AOC says, eviction moratorium. I mean, it's like the racket on the left. You stopped people from working. Obviously, they can't pay their rent. But you're not talking about the sharpest tools in the shed, whether it's Biden or AOC. And then they try to mock Marjorie Taylor Greene. She literally never stated that quote with space lasers. Democrats made that up. It was completely fabricated. Just like it was fabricated, Trump said both sides. He didn't say both sides in reference to they're both fine people. He never said that at all. He literally condemned the people that those journalists, or one in particular, whatever, lied about, claiming that Trump was trying to praise that, those, despicable people. No, he wasn't. He literally said they should be condemned. He was talking about Republicans who wanted statues, to remain. And so Marjorie Taylor Greene is a lot more for the rights of the average American. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene would be what the ACLU was 15, 20, 30 years ago. Literally, Marjorie Taylor Greene would be what the ACLU used to be. But then you have people like Twitch streamers, and they don't know anything about politics. One of them in particular is like, oh, Rick Scott, what did he do? He didn't even know who Rick Scott was. So anyway, let's continue. And he said something horrendous.
And the public watching that pardon? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Mr. Unger. Apologize. I didn't mean to skip over you. I now recognize Mr. Unger for 5 minutes.
Madam Chair, Ranking Member Stansberry, distinguished members of the subcommittee, I am honored to share my views with you. They are my own and not those of my current or former employers. I have served at USAID and the State Department in multiple roles and in non-governmental positions focused on U.S. foreign aid reform and global development. My government service took place during the administrations of Presidents George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Donald Trump. Every U.S. administration since World War II has wanted to shape foreign aid in line with its goals. But strangling the system into extinction is akin to unilaterally disarming at a time of mounting geopolitical competition for partnerships globally. Throwing away our toolbox does not make us safer or well-positioned to influence the world. Our set of foreign aid tools reflects enlightened self-interest. With it, the U.S. countered communism and enhanced the education, farming productivity, and health of people around the world while also saving lives. Our interest sputtered to a standstill. Even where very few waivers have been issued for some life-saving assistance, reports from implementers indicate that few, if any, programs have actually resumed due to payment systems not functioning and USAID staff layoffs. It is also counterproductive to eviscerate programs focused on other transnational concerns, ranging from conflict and corruption to migration and the trafficking of people and drugs. This unserious review process is additionally causing our government to be tied up in court cases.
All right, let's continue here.
Listen to what Democrats had to say about the administration shutting down USAID. Watch this.
This is a corrupt abuse of power that is going on.
This illegal, unconstitutional interference with congressional power is threatening lives all over the world.
Not one example of it harming any life. Not one example.
This is a constitutional crisis that we are in today. Let's call it what it is.
We talked about Trump wanting to be a dictator on day one, and here we are. This is what the beginning of dictatorship looks like.
Elon Musk responded on X saying
an authoritarian government is a very powerful bureaucracy, which is what Democrats want to continue. That's so funny how they have such a lack of knowledge. That's why Trump won the popular vote. I remember people telling me, "Oh yeah, Trump is a despot. Haven't you learned from history?" It's like, actually, I did learn from history, and learning from history should tell you that Trump is the antithesis of a despot, and the Democratic Party, with fake and phony primaries, going after the direct political opponents on nonsense. If Trump committed a crime, that's a different story. He didn't. On the other hand, Democrats might very well have committed crimes, going after him with USAID, with servers, with laptops that they, preemptively pardon everyone around Biden. Gee, you think maybe they committed crimes? Let's continue.
the corrupt politicians protesting outside the USAID building are the ones getting money from USAID. That's why they're there. They want your stolen tax dollars. Come on in, Ben Domenech. Why are Democrats keen on saving this agency?
Well, Stuart, the thing that is the problem with USAID, and this has been true for decades now, is that they don't like the United States part of USAID. This is a point that Marco Rubio made eloquently just yesterday. And this is something that has always been a very frustrating aspect of the way that they behave. They throw money in all these different directions overseas toward projects that would never get approved if they actually had to go through a traditional congressional review process.
And that's what I was saying. None of that. If you had to go through a traditional process, none of these projects, or most of them, would not go through. That's why Democrats are up in arms. Their own ideology they don't even believe in, enough to actually campaign on.
And the idea that we are in a constitutional crisis over something like this is absolutely laughable. USAID was created, obviously, by an executive order by President Kennedy back in the day. This is something that should absolutely be folded into and part of the tools used underneath the Department of State. And that's why I think that what is happening right now is a healthy dynamic, saying these are things that should not be just the ways for bureaucrats to spend money willy-nilly in accordance with woke or DEI political agendas. It should be something that is actually decided and determined by people who've been approved by the Congress to lead the cabinet of the executive branch. And that's something that I hope we get to eventually.
I want Welcome back. At any moment, President Trump will hold a new...
This began years ago when we were trying to figure out.
And so with Joni Ernst, Senator, the question is, well, why was she threatened by that organization?
What they were doing with our American taxpayer dollars that were going to support humanitarian efforts in Ukraine. So I wanted to know exactly how those dollars were being spent. We got all kinds of threats from USAID because I was trying to exercise my oversight capacity in Congress. So they...
that's just shocking.
It is a nightmare trying to follow that money and to understand what it's actually being used for.
Okay, that's the chair of the DOJ caucus in the Senate, Senator Joni Ernst, talking to Elon Musk about abuse of taxpayers at USAID, and that upwards of 50% of USAID's money went toward overhead for rent and salaries and junkets and entertainment expenses, but they threatened her.
So that rent and salary and entertainment, how much of that money is legally funneled to Democrats? If you give a pretty high salary to a USAID official, and that official then donates to the Democratic Party, well, you do the math on that. Almost 100% of the donations from USAID officials go to Democrats. So obviously, this is a source. This could very well lead to Democrats losing the midterms. Number one, because they're so unpopular. And they're such a failed political party. But number two, they're not going to have the same type of funding. And I think that's what President Trump, Musk, DOJ, I think that's what Republicans are doing. There was a Byzantine labyrinth of honest graft that made its way perhaps to funding. So you start indicting people, charging people, prosecuting a whole bunch of people who might have committed crimes in government against Trump, or within government agencies with corruption pertaining to the taxpayer money being used for nonsensical, bizarre things that nobody wants or that the country doesn't want. Potential illegal activity, perhaps in USAID. And suddenly you have the apparatus that's been propping up the Democratic Party and their efforts to hurt Trump and Musk and anyone they disagree with. You have that apparatus being leveled. So I think that they're going after the money first, and then, or in concert with charges and indictments.
She's got a constitutional right to do oversight. Joining us now from House Financial Services, Congressman Dan Muser. Congressman, here's what we found. Show the list of what's going on at USAID. Congressman, they wasted $20 million to recreate Sesame Street in Iraq. $9 million meant for Syria went to al-Qaeda terrorists. And aid money meant for Ukraine went to trips for models and designers to Paris and London Fashion Week, also to New York City. So this is what Joni Ernst is trying to stop. What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you what, you just hit the tip of the iceberg on that list, Liz. The waste that has come out of USAID, the unbelievable level of tax.
$38 million for that lab. Are you kidding me? Then $20 million for Sesame Street. $15 million for contraceptives. I mean, you can't make this up. You can't make this up. I mean, why don't Democrats simply say, look, we spent over $100 million for contraceptives in the Middle East. It's very good. We're going to run on this. Vote for us in the midterms a year and a half from now. They should just say that.
Taxpayer dollars that goes into USAID. I was on Foreign Affairs last term, and I had Samantha Power in hearings, and we were asking the questions, and I was asking, why don't we try subsidizing, at least, if we're going to do that, natural gas in Africa, and they were pushing solar panels. This was all about ideology. It's horrific, and this is exactly why DOJ members were not allowed in, and why we elected President Trump, we're scrutinizing these things far better and being allowed to. There was no transparency. There was no openness. We couldn't get the details. Well, the details are coming out, and unfortunately, the American people aren't going to like them, but they're going to be stopped. Yeah,
it's corruption. What do you make of this? President Trump reportedly putting the majority of USAID DC staffers on leave. USAID was created at the height of the Cold War to fight communism and do liberal market capitalism. But Senator Ernst said that they threatened her staff when she started to look into their corruption. That's her constitutional oversight duty. I mean, the media and Democrats are trying to claim that USAID is going to starve women and children. No, it's about stopping corruption and stopping left-wing activist groups and consultants and ideologies and getting the money to women and children.
Liz, there's so much corruption. Every department that I look into, every agency, there's situations like this. We're going. Rubio is now in charge of USAID. They did the right thing in closing it down. We have to correct it. That's what we were elected to do. It'll happen, and we're all seeing President Trump's doing it sooner rather than later.
Congressman Muser, we're going to stay on this story. The Evening Edit's going to follow any corruption that you uncover. Thanks for joining us.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is actually a story that, I mean, it's actually really, really important. If criminal charges are leveled, you're going to then have, all the receipts, so to speak, on the table. Democrats will have to defend. See, here's the thing. They don't have anything other than outrage. They never really did. It was always just outrage. Trump was a great president. They never countered Trump with actual, opposing viewpoints. It was always these absurd leaps of logic, trying to accuse him of everything under the sun. He wins the popular vote. Democrats, the system, would have been better off had Trump gone 2 consecutive terms. But like a moth to a flame, their quest for power was unmitigated. And it was so intense that they said, okay, we're going to wrestle control of the government from Trump. He'll never harm us again. We'll be able to just spend billions and waste billions of taxpayer dollars through this nightmare of a bureaucracy. And now Trump and Musk are taking a gigantic wrecking ball to everything. Now you have Kash Patel and Dan Bongino at the Federal Bureau of Investigation. That would never have happened. Pam Bondi, John Radcliffe at Central Intelligence. You have DOJ. You think there would have been DOJ in Trump's second consecutive term? Instead, they had Weekend at Bernie's, completely tore down the entire Democratic Party unilaterally. And then, after one day, one televised debate, they were so mortified, then George Clooney said, no, we can't have this. They all turned on Biden, lost miserably with Harris, and now, like I said, DOJ, Musk, Trump, his administration is taking a gigantic wrecking ball to everything they tried so desperately to keep intact. Anyway, hit subscribe. I'll see you tomorrow, everybody. This is actually really, really, really huge news. And, I mean, you have criminal defense attorneys in D.C. and his people who committed crimes, and it's not Trump or anyone around Trump. They went after Trump for things that they claim is about the First Amendment. So they went after Trump for a speech, and now they're saying, "Oh, Trump, it's our First Amendment rights." Like, wait a second, where were his First Amendment rights? Anyway, we'll talk about this more tomorrow. Hit subscribe. I think some huge, huge news in terms of indictments are imminent. Thank you very much, Paul, as always. I can never thank you enough. So kind.